Hello, welcome, and good evening to this night's session, the AMA session from OMSYSTEM. We hope you're doing really well. Welcome from the UK. We've got some really lovely rainy weather today. Lots of people on tonight, so it's really lovely to see the whole world. Really, I always love seeing where you're from, as you know. We've got some amazing tech experts joining us tonight. We have the wonderful PJ hailing from Poland. Hey, PJ, how are you doing?
Hi, hello. Hi, Claire. Hi, everybody. Quite nice. We have a very nice summer. Spring, 27 degree in Poland. I think this is good weather for birding.
Nice. Yeah, not here, but it sounds like that. We've also got the wonderful Mike Amico heading over from the States. Hey, Mike.
How's everybody doing? Hey, how's it going?
Are you having as good weather as Poland is at the moment?
Not bad. We had some storms over the weekend. Today seems pretty clear, so I think we're good.
Nice.
Yeah, not bad.
And we also have the wonderful David Smith, guru, tech expert.
Hello.
He's going to be doing everything.
How's everyone
tonight.
doing?
I've thrown him in at the dead end. He's doing the back end, the front end, the middle, aren't you, David?
I'm going to be doing the hokey cokey. I'm going to be in and out, and I'll be in the chat. And then we've got Christy helping out as well. We've got everybody in. We're all jumping in today.
And Tito has also finished his meeting early, and he might jump in. So you might see a random box pop up with Tito as well. So he was having internet connection issues, but we will hope to have Spain with us tonight. So it's a lovely global affair as always. Amazing, as I said, loads of people from all over the world: Colorado, Massachusetts, North Wales, Clemson, Saskatchewan. I mean, it's just wonderful. Hello, Amanda Threlfall. Haven't spoken to you for ages. I hope you're well. There's lots and lots of questions. As you know, these are our lovely community events, but what we always like to do is get some questions answered. So without further ado, we're going to jump straight in and we're going to go on the top of the questions. Let's see how we get on. So I forgot to say the subject tonight is birds in flight. Now, that can mean any question about lenses, about continuous shooting, autofocus, settings. Just throw it at us and we'll see if we can answer it. We've got David here, so we'll definitely be able to answer it. She said, hey. So let's have a look at the first question. Little Unicorn Channel, how do I get the bird tracking AI option on the OMD EM1 Mark III? Mike, I'm over to you.
Oh, well, the best way to get that is to buy the OM1 Mark II. Actually, the EM1X was the first to do that, and the EM1 Mark III did not have the bird tracking. So, but if you were to buy a new camera with that, I would go OM1 Mark II. That is the best one as of late. The best thing you could do on the Mark III is just shoot. You could still capture birds. We've done it for years. So, continuous autofocus, I would go without tracking personally. And it's just a matter of, panning, keeping that focus point on there and, setting up your sequential shooting and all that fun stuff. But unfortunately, the bird tracking wasn't on that camera. So
I know it was one of those things where, it was on the EM1X and obviously we, moved over to the brand new camera and it's a game changer for us, isn't it? Especially going from the 1X to the OM1, the differences in the AI is pretty phenomenal, isn't it? And
it's completely different. Yeah. And we've gotten spoiled.
To remember as well is that when we had EM1X, as Mike quite rightly says, that's where the tracking was. We had dual processors on that camera. And then when we came to 1 Mark III, we didn't have dual processors. And that's where people think, because of the lifetime, the birth of the products at the wrong times. So yeah, twin processors for the EM1X. That was a great camera. Still is a great camera.
Yep, but the 3 can capture. That's a fantastic camera for shooting birds with. So
exactly. Yep. So I hope we answered that for you. And great, get an OM1 or an OM1 Mark II, either way. Okay, next question is from Philip Romford. Hi, what is the best focus settings? I have found that CAF-TR tracking is not reliable. I have an EM1 Mark III. PJ, you want to take this one?
Of course, no problem. Personally, because everybody have own the best settings for birding. Everybody have own settings. Personally, for me, is 9 points. Of autofocus, continuous autofocus, of course, sequential shooting low to have autofocus on every frame. Sensitivity of continuous autofocus +1, and always starting point of autofocus on the middle point. Center point priority. I have always turned on. This is my settings for birding. I try to have shutter speed faster than 1,000 per second, because faster autofocus, faster shutter speed is faster autofocus. And I have only 10 frames per second because for me this is enough for birding photography.
Yeah. Mike, anything to add to that?
No, that's about how I do it as well. Pretty close to that. I definitely use continuous autofocus. I've never used the tracking. Like Philip said, I've always found the tracking isn't that reliable. It's just not on our cameras. It never really was a strong point, to be honest. It's gotten better and better and better to where the OM1 now is pretty darn good. But now you have the AI tracking, so I don't use it. So continuous autofocus without the tracking has been the most reliable for me.
Yeah.
You're
absolutely right. Sorry, go on. No, fire away. Go
on. I have one function turned on always. I don't know in English, but I will show on OM1. This is the same function in all our camera. This is on.
You've got to find it in English. It's like
yes.
Yeah, this is in your drive mode.
Yeah.
No special shooting settings. One.
I mean, what I was going to say, why PJ is looking for that is that, sort of tracking is almost like the precursor to AI, isn't it? Because, tracking is that very early system that everybody used. And then AI is the one that's sort of been built on the basis of that, and is now what sort of AI is taken over. So, like you say, tracking was good for its day, but it was never perfect, was it? It was never perfect.
It was a step above contrast and phase detection focus because it was looking for very simplistic changes as to where things were, and it was a very simplistic algorithm to start with.
I can find this, but I always have turned on a function stop camera when autofocus doesn't work, doesn't target well. I can turn on this in sequential shooting on CIF or single autofocus. I don't know. Maybe I will find this.
Okay, cool. We'll come back to that. Lovely to see Mick. Mick White's online, and he's got a lovely compliment for you, David. I always use CAF with the bird AI as recommended by OMSYSTEM, David Smith. But obviously, don't use super high speeds because you won't get your CAF. It's good, but well done, David. Your training is getting through to them eventually. They're all getting all that knowledge.
Good.
So lovely to see you, Mick. I hope you're doing well and taking lots of pictures. We got another question from Luis Mesa. With the Lumix Leica 100-400, is it better to turn off the lens stabilization? I mean, I've got to tell you, I've never used it, but I would probably say yes. What do you think, David?
You know what? This is a really tricky one to answer, actually, because of the differences between the systems. In my opinion, having used it, it depends which model you're using it with. So if you're going to use it with an OM1, Mark 1 or Mark 2, the stabilization in those cameras in body is phenomenal. And also you've got to remember as well, that's right at your center of gravity is where all that system's working. And if you're using a lens like the 100-400, even our 100-400, and you're out there at 400, the center of gravity for the movement point is much further away. And so it can depend really I would say if you're using an OMD model, I would definitely use lens IS priority and use the lenses IS. If you're using an OM1 Mark 1 or Mark 2, most people won't really notice that difference between using the lenses IS and the body IS. But if you're using body IS, it takes over from the lens anyway.
Exactly.
So it's a slightly convoluted way of doing it, and you do have to think about what specific setup you have because the technology's changed, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. And that Leica 100 to 400 is about 8 years old. I mean, I know they've done updates and things like that.
Yeah. And it's not an updated lens either. It's not something that we've seen them say there's going to be updates to it. In fact, the support on it's quite minimal. So whether or not they do create a second version, we don't know. So obviously we can only give our pure advice for our own stuff, and then experimental and experience advice on the other stuff. Because I mean, Mike, PJ, I don't know about you, but more often than not, the chances to use sort of Panasonic or other lenses comes when we go to events and they're there, or we go to stores to support them and we get to play around, and it's very minimal experience that we get with that because obviously we have all our own kit. But,
yeah, it's absolutely true. Yeah. And I did play with the newest 100 to 400 a couple months ago with the OM12, just quickly, like you said, like inside, just, and the stabilizer seemed to work pretty well with it now with the body. So yeah, it's gotten better. Yep.
Cool.
I can back to my one function.
You got it, PJ.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo.
Yay, I find it. Release priority.
Release priority. Yes.
I have always this function off. I have lower sequential shutter because camera will do smaller amount of picture, but I am in 100%. I don't know in English. Sorry. I know camera set all autofocus in 100% for all pictures, always. This is why I use this function. I always turn off this function. Camera will do picture only if autofocus will 100% on the object.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Cool. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, that's a good tip because, as I said, some people wouldn't even know what that meant, whether it was switched on or off, right? So that's a good thing to know. Now, apologies if I mute myself quite a lot. I have a cough, and I don't want to cough on live. So this one's from Cindy. Cindy says, I have an EE dot sight. Any hints on how to use it? Mike?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about setting it up versus actually using it, I mean, using it, you just want to keep the camera out in front of you and not bring it really close. And you want to see that dot sight.
Yes.
Zoom that, because that's, the idea is that when you put that laser on the center of the subject, it's in the center of your LCD. And to do that, you really want to set it up. So like if you have a 300 millimeter f4, I would suggest to go out, like say in your backyard, put it on a tripod, turn on the laser sight and focus on something that's still in your yard, like a lock on a shed or something like that. And then you want to adjust the left, right, up and down arrows on the dot sight until you move that laser to where when you shoot that lock, it's in the center of the LCD. And then you pretty much have it, set up for that lens. And then you go out and you just, you have an eagle perching or something, the eagle takes off. The idea is that it's going to make it a lot easier to capture as opposed to trying to find it in your viewfinder. So, and that should work pretty well.
Yeah. When you're the thing about when you're using long lenses, if you look away for any second and you're out of 400 mil, 500 mil, 600 mil, then you're trying to look for the bird with the long lens, and it can be a little. I've been there, I've done it, especially when you're looking at foliage and stuff like that. If you're not on a tripod and your handheld, of course, you lose your subject. The idea with the EE dot sight, it gives you peripheral vision. It gives you a much bigger vision than the lens is giving you zoomed out, right? So it's really interesting to use. I absolutely love it. And like you say, it isn't about holding it up to the eye. You can use it from a distance. You can, it's actually quite fun to use. I know one of our guys who absolutely loves it. Martin up in sort of Cambridge Road, Martin Abbess, and he absolutely loves his E-dot sight. You've got one on there, PJ, haven't you?
I use this for eagles mostly, and I try to set this dot and autofocus before picture on the same point like Mike said, but on I think 100 meters from me. From my point of view, for big eagles, big birds, 100 meters from us to target is the best dimension to set this red dot and this to set autofocus in camera, and after that everything will work perfectly, I think, for big birds.
It's so nice and easy to follow. We hope that's answered your question, Cindy. We have got a quick question now. It's not birds in flight, but we can quickly answer it for Stephen. Not a bird question, but can you use the 1.4 the 2 times with the 60mm macro? You can, but not with anything. Not with anything that we sell.
Okay, so can we not teach them the naughty way, please?
As a photographer.
Yeah. So
it's not the naughty way, it's just the resourceful way.
Yes.
We're going to say no.
So no, it is. Yeah, you can, but it's not official, and there is a potential that you can damage your camera and your lens. So it's one of those you do it on your own kind of risk thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as moderators, we do not. But there are videos out there, I'm sure, just not from us.
Yeah, I never did it before the advent of the 90mm ever.
Exactly. Okay. Quick question, back to birds in flight from Caroline. Now, this is an interesting one because I think that you got to start really simply with a question like that. Start with your basic settings, and then you build up from there on. I think that I know I'm guilty of it. When you get a new model and it can do 120 frames a second, you're like, yeah, get it on the top set. Never the best idea. Bring it back. So Caroline says, I'm new to Olympus and OM1. I would love to know the best settings for birds in flight and tips. I've not been successful so far. Mike,
sure.
If you were starting out, right? If you were starting out with an OM1, and you know your stuff, like you don't want to go guns a blazing. What would be you said would be your first initial settings to say this is what I would start you off with?
Sure. And are we looking OM1 or OM1 Mark II?
OM1.
All right, so similar settings. OM1, I would turn on the bird focus. That's one.
Yeah.
I would go continuous autofocus with no tracking, because your tracking is your bird focus.
Yeah.
It depends on the birds you're shooting, but I would probably start out with maybe like the 9-point or what have you, a little bit bigger of a square just to start out. You can make that smaller or larger. It just depends on what you're shooting. I would go to on the OM1, because your SH2 would be 25 frame per second minimum. I would just go to sequential shooting. You'd have blackout, but that's okay. But then you can get 18 frames a second, let's say. So it's a little bit less, so you're not killing your card. From there, I'd also personally, I would turn on, this is a personal thing, but I would turn on autofocus plus manual focus. Because for me, if I'm shooting birds like let's say warblers, and they're going in and out of branches, it's nice to take over with that manual focus and go in and out. But that might be something down the road.
Yeah, I was going to say
I think initially just, I'd do silent shutter so you're a little faster. I would put it in the bird focus, continuous autofocus. And then honestly, from there, Caroline, it's just a matter of how you shoot. Do you shoot aperture priority? Do you shoot shutter priority? Do you shoot manual? Which of those do you shoot comfortably? Because from there, you can shoot any one of those and pretty much capture birds. It's a matter of your comfort level and keeping that shutter speed up no matter what one you're shooting. So,
right, exactly. And the thing about anything that you're sort of taking pictures of, there's a lot to think about, especially when you've got a new camera, right? There's so many things to think about. So I would definitely think about setting all that up before you head off and choose a custom function so you can put it on a custom function. So at any point in that period of taking images, if you've had a wander with your settings and maybe you've gone, you know, like, what am I doing? You can switch the camera off, go back to C1, and then all your settings are there, right? And you can start again. Because I've been there when I'm like, what?
And you know, if I can add on to what Mike's kind of said there as well, just kind of put it into reality, because I've done this. And so there's a story behind getting something new and switching everything on. I want that on. I put this on. Let's switch that on. And recently, I got a new TV. Okay. And I went through the thing and I went, yeah, we'll have all this stuff on. And then I couldn't figure out why the TV kept switching on every time I walked into the room and came out again. You know, I've switched on a motion sensor on the TV, and why does it keep switching on? But this is an example. We get these things, and we go, yeah, it's got to be good if it's there. We'll just switch it all on.
Right.
But you know, Mike, some
necessary.
stuff conflicts with each other, doesn't it, as well?
It does. Yeah. Sometimes you could do too much.
Yeah. And I think sometimes when you put too much on, you know, especially when you're learning, you want to slow down, get everything, and then you can, like Mike said, you can then start adding stuff on as you go. But
I think with birding, birding
and
and wildlife, you definitely want to add as you go, because I think the tendency is to look online and say, I'm going to copy his or her settings.
Right.
And then you're confused because you have so much going on in the camera. Like David said, you're like, why do I have the blinkies going on? Why do I have this going on? And you can't figure out what's going on. So you go from your typical shooting capability, which you're comfortable with, and then little by little add some of this stuff in.
And of course, we have all the workshops as well that we do online, and we've got a link in the chat to the events. And we, I think, all of us are committed to providing different levels of workshop and knowledge, all the way back to, you know, we do the basics, the exposure triangle basics, and we go right up to, you know, pro capture and birds in flight as well. And it is about doing it in a kind of a piece by piece way, like Mike says.
Yeah, and birds in flight, you want to keep that shutter speed up. So, and I was just thinking birds in flight. I mean, 2,500 of a second, maybe a good starting point. You can go slower than that, especially with bigger birds. But that's a good like starting point to make sure you're starting to capture the wings, you know, and no motion and all that stuff. So that's where I would probably start if you're just starting out, and that way you'll stop that motion for the most part.
Cool, and take it easy. It's all good, Caroline, we hope. Right, question for PJ. I just got an OM1 Mark II. When panning to follow a bird, the viewfinder seems more blurry than on my old Mark 1. Hold on a minute. Mark 1, Mark 3. Okay, yeah, EM1 Mark 3. Sorry. Is this a feature or have I got a setting wrong somewhere? David, actually, let's give it to David because David loves the setting. David?
So you just got an OM1 Mark II, and when you pan, it seems more blurry than on an M1 Mark III. So there's a couple of things. I mean, first of all, what you've got to make sure is when you get a camera, if you're like me and your eyes don't work very well, is you've got to set your diopter up. So when you're setting your diopter, that's the little wheel on the side of your viewfinder just there. You want to be looking through the viewfinder and paying attention to the annotations in there, the numbers and letters that you see, not the screen. Because if we get the numbers and the letters sharp by turning the diopter, then when we're in focus, everything else is sharp. And sometimes people kind of miss that objective. Now, you got to remember that it is a different viewfinder. So this is an OLED viewfinder as well.
Right.
So that's going to create a difference in the way you view. Now, if you wear glasses that have any, and you shoot with your glasses like this, and you have any sort of coating on your glasses, or even worse, they're polarized, that's going to affect what you see. Through an EM1 Mark III. Now, it wouldn't have that effect on an OM1 because of the OLED viewfinder, so you can wear polarized sunnies and things like that and not have to worry. In terms of things being blurry when it moves, it could be that you're using one of the slower frame rate shooting patterns or pro capture. Now, if you're using pro capture and you pan, as soon as you halfway press to initiate pro capture, the frame rate that you view through the monitor is slowed down. And that could definitely have an effect as well. But having said all that, unless we see what you're seeing, it's really difficult to try and diagnose that particular problem. But I would say it sounds more like a frame rate slowdown for some reason than an actual blurriness due to visual problems or diopter issues.
Yeah, I was going to say frame rate. That would say like,
and it can be affected, you know, if it's an OM1 Mark II, then you've got obviously anywhere through mechanical shot, electronic shot, from 5 frames per second up to 120, depending on what you're shooting in.
Exactly.
Some blackout free, some not. You know, it's a big drop in the ocean for what it could be, but frame rate probably.
Try those, JB. JB, try those. Okay.
There is one more difference.
Go on. Yeah, go on.
Because if you use EM1 Mark III, you have only, I think, 60% of viewing scene because you have blackout. On SH1 and SH2 in OM1, you don't have blackout. And this is why someone said there is blurry, because you see this like movie, not one frame, one frame, one frame, one frame. This is like movie. And this is totally different viewfinder, looking viewfinder in OM1 second or OM1 first than EM1 2, 3 or X.
Cool. Woohoo! There's always a lot. There's always a lot, but we think we've answered that. Go through those process of eliminations, JB, and then you should get there. So where were we? What did I do? I've switched someone off there. Hang on a second and put you back on. Oh, are you doing it, David, or am I doing it? That was so funny. Get your hands off. That was funny. On off. Robert, over to you, PJ. I use back button focus and have turned off the focus with the half press shutter. Okay. Do I need to turn the shutter button focus back on to use Pro Capture?
I think no.
Yeah, I thought you did.
I think no. I will try because
hang on a minute. We're all look. I thought you had to. That's interesting. She says, grabbing a camera. If you turn off the front AF,
I thought you did.
The back button focus doesn't give you Pro Capture, does it?
Right. It'll get it ready, but then to actually activate it,
you
have to have that shutter.
Yeah, so you'll get your focus on the back button, but you won't get Pro Capture because you've turned the AF off on the front button, which means there'll be no Pro Capture, right?
Right.
PJ's speed setting, he's got it here. I think.
I'm back.
PJ's in. Here we go.
Right, we could be wrong here. We could be wrong here.
Pro Capture, and it's working now. It's working.
Right, back button focus.
It's working.
Right, back button focus and front button is still.
There is huge. Okay. It's working.
It's working. Okay.
It's working, but if you want autofocus, you need to press 2 buttons in the same time. One shutter button is for Pro Capture, and second back button is for autofocus. Starting auto Pro Capture is only by shutter point. You need to press.
PJ's right there. It's rear button to focus. The front button is committing a buffering process, not a focusing process.
Okay.
This is autofocus, and after that, this is
So it's not like you say.
It's the same like exposition. Pro Capture is starting after half press shutter button. This is the same like exposition. If you have sequential shutting and autofocus on the back button, exposition will be mattering after half press of shutter button. This is the same.
Perfect. Woohoo! That was a break in the ranks there. Me and you, Mike, we went left field. Right? No, that can't happen. But this is why we're here. This is why we're here to have a play. To be honest with you, I don't know that because I don't use back button focus.
I don't either.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, it's really bad, isn't it?
I use a lot of buttons. I use back button focus, but I don't use Pro Capture, and this is why.
Oh,
my brain always goes 2 fingers. One finger. One finger's fine.
One finger, exactly.
2 fingers. 2 fingers. Instead 2 fingers.
I'm just so used to this. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Robin, we hope you have enjoyed that answer. I certainly did. It made me laugh a lot. Okay. LDI video says OM1 Mark II. Should the bird detection frame and the green AF target move as a pair? They frequently seem out of sync. Who wants to take this?
I could do it if you want.
Go on then, Mike. Take it away.
I mean, they're totally different things. So because their bird detection, that square that's going around, or the two squares, that's going to grab the bird. No matter what, it's going to find a bird. But let's say you have your focus point off of the bird, you're going to be focusing over here. So they work in conjunction, but you have to match them up to really focus on that bird. And that's why you can create like a zone focus, or you can move that point around and make sure it's on that bird when the focus is on there for the AI. But they're two totally separate things. You know, you're adjusting the focus, but the bird focus is grabbing the bird. Does that make sense? I think
it's a question that comes up quite a lot, because there can be a bit of confusion, right? If you've come away from birds in flight, maybe you're doing something else and your AF point is over to the left, for instance, and it's a single point, you're like, oh, hang on. But the bird AI is the one that will take priority, right? If there's a bird in the frame.
Right, like PJ right there, he's got that there. Now, if he moves over there, now your focus is going to be over where those focus points are. So, but it's still trying to find the bird. It's not highlighted pure white. It's like a grayish. But once he touches that bird with the focus, boom, it's on. So they work in conjunction with each other, but they are two separate things.
Yeah. And as I said, it's so sometimes I know that when I started out using a bit of AI, what I did was I had a much larger square. Rather than went for the 9, I went for the 25. Because if you're a newbie and you're trying to follow a bird in the sky, and you're not successful, that's pretty much my bag. Actually, it's sometimes easier to have the 25 square. It's just that little bit larger and allows the bit more coverage over the frame. You know, so something like that would help, or even going all square to a certain extent, but then you have no control over that secondary focus, do you?
Right. I mean, you can also create your own points. I mean, you can make a zone where you have like maybe something that's more sort of rectangular, but up and down, and you can just kind of go over different zones. I mean, but I'm like you. I mix it up, to be honest. Depends on what I'm shooting. But
depends on the size of the bird and how near you are. But you can see PJ is making a box there. That's what I call an owl, or a birds in flight with the open wings. You know, you can make one for giraffes or anything like that, and that is in your autofocus target mode settings. And you can see now that we have over 1,000 autofocus points, it's much easier to make a more specific size and shape. And what that means is that box can jump some of the pixels, so it's actually easier to get to the subject when you're moving it with the thumb wheel at the back, or your joystick at the back, not the thumb wheel, the joystick. So we hope that helps. We shall go on to the next question. Jim says, I use back button focus and have 2 custom modes set for birds in flight, both using CAF. One mode is set for 10 frames a second, and the other is set for pro capture. This seems like this guy knows what he's talking about. Should I hold down the focus button to keep focus? Yes. We're all going to nod there, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
There's this thing, though, I think, because people come from different systems and they work in different ways, there can be this initial misconception that if you press the back button to focus, it's starting the process and it will keep running even if you're not holding it. And that's not the case with ours. So you need to maintain a push for AF to be continually active.
Absolutely.
Because and quite often as well, I'll get sort of emails of people with sequences of images going, why is it not in focus? You know, I pressed the back button once, it should surely have been focusing. Well, it doesn't unless you're still holding on to that, either the back button or obviously the front halfway press as well.
Right.
Yeah, and then and do other brands do that then if you put in the back button focus and it just stays on? Surely I thought back button focus was just to focus once, get your stuff ready. Again, this is my confusion with back button focus and probably why I don't use it.
Yeah, I don't think most of them do, but I think some of them have a function whereby you can program the button to be AF start, and the process is it starts until you press it again and then it stops. Yeah. So, which we do have, but only with Starry AF. So we have a Starry AF function And it only works like that way. You press the Star EAF allocated button to start it, and it will run without you holding onto it. And you can press it again to stop it if it doesn't catch focus. But that for us only works with Star EAF, not with general AF.
Yeah, and obviously with Star EAF, you're looking to infinity, so it's only almost looking at one setting, isn't it? Whereas if you were to try and use that for birds in flight, it would have to be in and
Star
out.
EAF starts at infinity as well and comes backwards. You know, it hits that furthest point of focus to then draw it back. Yeah. And when we're doing birds, wildlife, sports, anything, we're a lot closer than, you know, infinity.
Yeah, cool, good answers.
This is why we should use autofocus limiter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, PJ's right. Autofocus limiter.
Yeah. Autofocus limiter is one of the greatest function in our cameras to birding and fly, I think.
We don't talk about it enough, do we?
No, it's great because it means that, you know, when you're looking at your scene and you go, well, there's a mountain that I definitely don't want to focus on because the animal's a lot closer.
It's here and you can set free distance. I always have something like this. For small birds, like this is close one. Second one is for eagles, and this is from 20 to I think 200 meters. I think it's okay. Bird distance is much bigger, but 160 to I think 700 meters, and always I don't give permission camera to go to infinity. This is my setup, and I can have this one on the button, and I can change dynamic between this three distance, and I think this is very, very important setup to birding photography.
I absolutely agree. So let's go back a bit from if anybody doesn't know what focus limiter is, focus limiter allows you to choose the front area and the back area of where you want to focus. So what that means, it's not going to over focus or under focus, right? Because with any lenses, be it a 300mm, 150, there's a lot of glass for the AF to scan all the way through back and forth. And if you can limit that distance, if you know that your subject is anywhere between 10 meters in front of you and 60 meters in front of you, you can cut down anything behind that. So that massively speeds up your AF, saves battery, gets the shot you want. So if you're not into focus limiter, we've never done a video on it, we probably should. It really is an important feature for this type of photography, isn't it, guys?
Sure.
Yep. One of the most important, I think. The same like here, but you can use this on every lens, on 120 to 100, on 40 to 150, on every lens you can use, and you can set to 10 centimeters what distance you want to have, and if you have grass or branches between you and birds, this also helps because you can limit this distance, and autofocus will not focusing for branches or something like this.
And you know what else we don't talk about as much as well? We don't talk about how to figure out what distances you want to put into your AF limiter, because
I love that.
There's a tool, isn't there, in the camera? So we've got our preset manual focusing option, which allows you to instantly jump to a distance for manual focus. But here, PJ's got it up. Within that, it's this neat little calculator, you know. So if you highlight that, and then the camera, either via AF or via manual focus, is going to help you out on giving you those approximate distances. But it's a really helpful tool, you know, in finding where point A and point B is.
You can do this by manual focus, or you can press button and autofocus.
So basically, you've got one. So it helps you tell you the difference. It basically measures and tells you the distance. So you can point it to your nearest spot, and it will say 4 meters. You can point it to your furthest away spot, and it will say 30 meters. And then you know the measurements to put in the focus limiter, which is exactly
Right.
what PJ just showed you. And it is such a cool little trick, isn't it?
Absolutely. And do you know what as well? I think having never used preset manual focus to focus, but always used that tool that's within the option to find those distances constantly.
Yeah. I'm just writing down on our list, focus limiter, David.
And I just learned that. Thanks,
Talk
guys.
about in the future.
I'm looking on my video content list. I'm just adding it in, lovely. All right. Video content focus limiter. Small reel, 2 minutes long. Bosh.
Yeah. I'll take a week to film that. Don't worry.
A week. in the Maldives.
It only works in Hawaii.
Yeah, it does.
I love it.
Somewhere around the second week in August, it only works in Hawaii.
Take it in January. It's cold here. Anyway, what settings do you use in Pro Capture to photograph a bird taking off directly towards you? Finding the autofocus on my OM1 and 40-150 f-Toy 2.8 isn't able to keep up with the sudden change in velocity. Well, that's interesting because, I mean, it's like the perfect lens if you're that near and the perfect body. So, PJ, what would you say? What would be your first port of call here?
First, I will ask what Pro Capture do you use? Because if you use SH1, there is only autofocus on the first frame, and you can't do in this situation a series of sharp images because you will have focus on the first frame. If you use SH2, of course, I will use bird detection. I will use all points in this situation. I will put autofocus sensitivity +1, I think. I will use autofocus limiter to don't focus on back of the beard. And I will use Pro Capture SH2 with OM1 25 frames per second. I think to slow it down because 40 to 150 support 50 frame per second in OM1, but I think in this situation it's not necessary to use 50, and you will have 2 times bigger series with 25 frame per second and bigger chance to have this one the best moment of this flight.
What about you, Mike? What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that PJ just nailed it. I mean, the main thing, one of them is the sensitivity, like he said, for something coming at you and sort of changing direction. So you definitely want to set your sensitivity, continuous autofocus, again, no tracking, and bird focus. But yeah, you should be able to capture that with that. And I agree, you got to make sure you're in SH2. So
yeah,
SH2 or normal Pro Capture because this is only two, and of course you need to continuous autofocus because.
Cool. Birds in flight is always one of those subjects where you could do 2 or 3 hours on it, right? Everybody gets their cameras, you get the tutorial out. Maybe we'll have like a.
We've already nearly done an hour, and it didn't even feel like we've touched on
I
half the questions
know, right?
that we're being asked. Nowhere near. I mean, I think it's probably important to say as well. I know we've put it in the chat that if we haven't answered you, just get it back in the comments when the video's not live, and we'll all go in and start stacking answers. Yeah.
You need a part 1, 2, and 3 for this.
Maybe we do another session on birds in flight because it is such a huge it's such a huge subject, So okay, this is a good one. I'm going to pass this over to someone who can put the back of a camera on, please. Please explain how with the OM1 Mark II, how to lock focus on one bird when there are multiple birds detected. So we need you to
PJ's going on with that. There we go.
He's on it.
You need to, I think, use 2 buttons. This is the fastest one. One is subject selections. And second one, I prefer this one. This is subject detection, turn on or turn off. And always I push this button on the front, choose bird, And a moment.
Have you got a picture of multiple birds there, or have you just got the one?
Got
I
the
have
fish.
one. But if you
Let's get the fish.
if you press this button, what you set for subject detection, you can see autofocus
Oh
lock
yeah,
on
in the
right
background, I
side.
can see it.
There
I
is
can just see it there. Yes, I can.
the same button give you a chance to change bird, because if you press them and hold them and turn on wheel, you can change bird in what bird you won't lock. But I don't have only one bird. Maybe
Yeah.
I will change picture for
Yeah, so
a
exactly
moment.
that. You basically hold down the button and use the front dial, and it will jump from one bird to select the next bird that
Yeah.
you wish, and you can select up to 8, and it will give you one. Oh, yeah, there you go. Back to PJ. There you go.
And we have 2 now, and I can press this button. This is lock, or
Yeah,
press and
yellow.
hold and change bird. Left
go.
one, right one, left one, right one. I want to lock on the right one, and it's lock.
Perfect. It's a good one,
I
that
think
one.
it's really,
Again,
really important as well to point out that that is specifically an OM1 Mark II function as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have visions of people everywhere checking all their cameras now. This is something only on the OM1 Mark II with selection and lock, and it is phenomenally good. Once you've told it which bird is you want, that's it.
Yeah.
If you want to change in OM1 first, this is one way for that, but you need to use smaller point, and you must change like
an autofocus point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you
autofocus
point.
Yeah.
This is manually changing bird, but it is slower than normal version of OM1 second. But you can use it.
At least you can still do it. Again, sometimes worth having that slightly larger autofocus point, so you can jump between the 2 birds, sort of thing. You can do that option, but like you say, part of the Mark II's magic is those things, like those little tiny nuances that we updated were a much bigger update than people thought, right? And that's one of them. Very, very good.
And also the thing is to remember as well, you know, if you're not talking about an OM1 Mark II, and I have to say as well, and I've seen a comment in the chat about it being a left eye viewfinder glasses wearing user, it's a little bit more difficult for me, but we have the touch tracking on the back of the screen. So if you haven't got subject selection, you've got an OM1 Mark I or even an OMD, you can move that AF point very quickly by touching the back of the screen when your eye is up to the viewfinder, right?
Yeah,
exactly. And the AF touch point thing is such an another underrated thing, because like you say, you can just put alert and you can follow it as best you can.
Just a little bit tricky if you are a left eye viewfinder user like me, because obviously you've got to get past your nose and a
big nose like me. It's good.
It's still really, really helpful though.
I have long list of picture of my life with autofocus point on left side, because my nose changed autofocus. I have long list of pictures. If autofocus is on left side on the top, this is my nose. Always this is my nose.
Yeah, it wasn't as accurate on the Pen F.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we got a question from Denise. Mike, to you, wondering about ISO, auto, not auto. Is there a button on the camera that you can suggest? Oh, it depends on which camera, doesn't it? But the answer is you can put any button to ISO. ISO is the one that you can change to anything. So if you have a spare button, or if you have a place where your hand falls naturally, that is where I would put it. If you want to change it often, that's sort of my general feeling. What do you think, guys? The same thing? Just put it somewhere it feels good.
Yeah, and I like where it's at on the like the Mark III and then forward, where it's kind of off to that right hand corner.
Yeah.
You know.
we live in time where you have auto IA with denoise like in OM Workspace, in Topaz, and a lot of programs give this function for us. And from that time, I don't use ISO lower. I have always auto ISO, and I don't know what ISO is in camera. And I denoise all my pictures from 12,000, 20,000. It's no problem at all.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that
think,
is one joy of OM, right? The ISO, it can be left a little bit more to its own thing, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a personal preference, right? I mean, a lot of people don't like to use auto ISO, and then some people do. So, for me, if it's like a cloudy day or the light's constantly changing, and I don't want to mess with having to worry about it, auto ISO, I'm fine with that. Like PJ said, I just let it fly with the OM1, and the new software that's out there for almost any camera now. But otherwise, I was in Florida a couple weeks ago. It's bright, sunny days. I'm at like 200 or 400 ISO or 600 ISO just to keep it lower and still have that shutter speed. But the key is keeping that shutter speed up. So
yeah,
that's it.
And yeah, I mean, it's
sometimes
really
as well what people. Oh, sorry, Claire.
No, go
I
on.
was just going to say sometimes what people don't remember is that there are other things that can affect noise that we just don't initially think about. So depending on your environment, you've got to deal with things like heat haze.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to deal with, are you using a filter on the front of the lens that could potentially be making a difference to how that light is getting in there? So there are other things that are perhaps not right, on the camera itself that's changing things as well.
Yeah,
true.
And I think it is interesting about that whole rule. People have rules within their photography, but I think OM system cameras are there to break a lot of those rules. What you sort of thought. I mean, a bit like me and back button focus, right? Back button focus was a thing that we always used back in the day. The cameras are so fast now, I don't feel the need for it. But that doesn't mean to say it's right or wrong. But again, ISO is a similar thing. Obviously, the lower the ISO, the better the image. But we've gone from film to digital, and with the OM1, the processor is so good. I mean, I've seen shots at the top end when I, thought, really? So, don't be afraid to push it a little bit more. 10,000 above, don't be scared. It can handle it. And there is a little software package out there if you need to bring it back if you can't. So just be bold. That's what I say. Be bold. So Denise, we hope that helps. Just assign it to any button. So that I hope that helps. This is an interesting one. Deb Sunderman says, when photographing a bird that is perched, should I use a single focus point or all focus points, wanting a soft background? Right, PJ, over to you.
Sorry, but what is perch?
Sitting on a branch.
Like just sitting on a branch.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how connect soft background with autofocus point, because background is depend of distance of you to bird and from bird to background, or how bright you have what fast you have lens. You need to open aperture. This is one thing to have a soft background. You need to have a short distance to bird, and you need to have a big distance between bird and background, and this give you very soft background and very blurry background, like in this last picture what I showed. This will be green one blurry background if you have some trees there. About focusing point, it depends of situation. If you have always birds on the same branch, and you can use single autofocus point. In some situation, I'm turn off whole autofocus. I have only manual focus on the same area always, because I know birds will be on the same branch and I don't need autofocus. This is depend of situation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a whole variant of things to consider there. what camera, because if you're using an OM1 and an OM1 Mark II, put your AI on. You don't have to worry about any AF points. It will always look at the eye, and you want the eye in focus. Nothing worse than having a beak in focus in the eye out of focus, unless that's what you're going for, of course. So yes, that is to consider. But like PJ says, you need distance between the subject and the background for a blurry subject. You also need a nice wide aperture, as wide as you can go for the subject. And if you've got those two things right, and if the bird is really playing and behaving well, you can muck around with your AF points, and then decide how you like. If you're really good at the tiny, tiny ones and you can follow an eye, great. I suggest you start slightly bigger. I would anyway. That's what I reckon. Just have a practice on a pigeon or something that's not moving too fast, or something else like a teddy or something. Just stick it in the garden. All that sort of stuff is great to practice.
Bird on a stick.
Bird on a stick.
Bird on a stick.
We are nearly up for the hour. How quickly has that gone? We're not anywhere near any of the questions. We've still got, I'm looking through the chat, and it's really great, guys. Honestly, we love you talking to each other and having little chats. I always look through afterwards and I was like, oh, Susie's in, and someone was talking to someone. I always love that. It's so nice that you're all helping each other out, especially if we can't get to all the questions. Steve Smith says, could you please reiterate the shutter sensitivity settings? What's best for birds in flight versus individual birds hiding in dense brush? Do we mean continuous autofocus settings? If that's what we mean. So basically
sensitivity for
rather than shutter sensitivity, we mean CAF sensitivity, right? Where
right there.
Your subject, there we go. So it's in the autofocus menu on page 4, and basically CAF sensitivity. So +2, basically, if you have line of sight, if the bird is between, there's nothing between you and your subject, you would have +2. So the AF locks on and you can follow nice and easily. If you have growth, undergrowth, or if you have reeds or a bit of grass between you and your subject, then you take it down to -2. Now, again, on the bird AF, that has been improved. This was one of the improvements with the Mark II over the Mark I. That's not getting, confused by grass or anything sort of in the way. And again, it doesn't just mean for wildlife. It could mean on a football pitch. You got someone with the ball and a defender runs in the way. It's anything where you may have interference between you and your subject. So direct light of sign +2. Not direct light of sign -2, and then anything in the middle, right? Everyone agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Nice and easy.
If you have some problem with auto-focusing between branches, I will only add this one thing. I will add, one moment, autofocus plus manual focus.
Yes.
Because you can use continuous autofocus with manual focus, and if autofocus have some small problems between branches to set target focusing in 100%, you can help autofocus by manual focus and adjust this small difference to perfect for a sharp picture.
Cool.
Agreed.
Right, we're going to go for one more question. So there's a lot of questions we haven't answered. We apologize. We will go in after and answer them. We will definitely probably have another session like this soon, I think. And it's going to be from the lovely Chris Bailey. Chris says, with the 100 to 400, I have taken some successful bird shots by underexposing and increasing in post-processing. What underexposure stop will affect bird detection focus? Like, how under do you have to be before bird AI says, I don't want to play with that anymore? As anyone, I only ever go a third under or third over because our metering system is so good. I never feel unless I'm doing something arty or trying, I never feel the need to go off too far to the left and too far to the right. What does everybody think? Let's have everyone's opinions on this. David, I'm going to start with you.
Well, first of all, it's quite controversial, the under or overexposing and then increasing or decreasing in post-process. Realistically, what we hear a lot of, the kind of general consensus would be overexpose and bring it down in post, because then you don't get the noise risk. So that it being a personal thing, what I would then move on to say is it depends on the situation. If you underexpose by 3 stops a bird against the sky, it's still going to see the bird. If you underexpose 3 stops a bird in a bush, it's probably not going to see the bird in the bush. So it becomes environmental then, doesn't it, really? I personally wouldn't go below a stop so that the AI can have the best chance of seeing what it's been taught to see. But again, a kestrel in the sky against a white background, it's going to see that even if you bring that exposure right down.
Yeah, and overexposing in those specific areas is too much, isn't it? You've got a black object in a white sky, and then you're overexposing. That is actually even harder to bring back. So I tend to go the opposite way a little bit, right? What do you think, PJ?
I disagree. Because, in my opinion, this totally don't affect beard detection, because one process is detection, autofocus, and metering, and second process is taking picture. We see only a simulation of underexposing or highlighting picture on the screen. Camera always open aperture to maximum to autofocus before photography, before taking picture. I think that don't affect at all. You can push down 5 stops and autofocus will do job the same like on the 0 point. This is my opinion.
I love it. And Mike, you get the last word here, Mike.
Yeah, now I'm lost. But I was going to agree with David, and then I it's kind of like a show. I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of leaning PJ's side now. I've never been in that dark of a situation.
I don't mind. You guys can sit on like one side of the bench. I'm heavy enough to weigh down this side on my own.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking like, who do I go with now? I can't get my camera to come up.
I
was trying to get. There we go. I was going to say, can I try it? I mean, can we darken something up? I mean, if you were to take something down like super dark, it's still finding the bird. See the
but is that because it was already on it?
Well, let's move it.
Can we go to another picture and then come back? Just because I want to know, like, go to a picture of something completely.
How about if I move it? If I move it like that.
Oh, okay.
Take it down.
Take it down, then move it back.
And then move it back. There's the bird.
There
it is. I didn't know that. I mean, I just wouldn't do that. Right?
PJ is the winner.
That's really good. Though. Yeah, really good.
Whoa! Oh well, Chris, what a question. That was I picked that question because I was like,
tearing the team apart, Chris.
I know it's back to that low light capability. It can capture it. How is it?
What?
I know that because I'm always
in the dark.
He's always shooting birds at night.
In my personal work, I do a lot of pictures with only light rim on object in sport photography, and I always have car detection turn on, and it's working even in -5 in dark forest without problems. Because this is only simulation. If you turn on simulation of Viewfinder in our menu,
we're going to give PJ's got the win from everybody here. So we're going to put it up for PJ because he's really nailed it there. Absolutely nailed it, PJ. Good man.
That was brilliant. Oh, guys, you've been such a good team tonight. I always love these sessions.
It's gone so quickly, though, right?
Every day's a school day. Thanks, David, for joining us. You've been brilliant. Thanks for doing the back and the front. For PJ from Poland and from Mike from the States. Thank you so much, guys. I've really enjoyed it. And thank you to everybody out there. Next session will be next month. As always, we look forward to it. There's lots of things going on throughout the month. We've got Zoom sessions, and there's some offline stuff going on. And anytime you need us, you know, you can reach out on social, DM us on social. We will always get back to you as soon as we can. And good night from us, and we look forward to seeing you again next month. Thanks, everybody, guys. See you again soon.
See you.
Take care.
See you later.